variety of factors continue to impact our operations, including challenges with air traffic control, weather, and unscheduled absences in some work groups. Other airlines report similar reasons for cancellations and delays. Now that the federal government is increasing pressure on them, there is concern that some airlines may actually cut back on summer flights to ensure the ones they do get up in the air arrive on time.
Fox's Jonathan Siri in Atlanta. A teenager is dead and a police officer is hurt after a Sunday night shooting in Washington, D.C. Police say the 15-year-old was shot and killed in an event connected to a music festival. 2 other victims are recovering at a hospital. America's listening to Fox News.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Subway's Eat Fresh Refresh brings you the sequel to the Sweet Onion Chicken Teriyaki. Enjoy the new Sweet Onion Steak Teriyaki. Delight your taste buds with tender, juicy steak marinated in the tangy new Sweet Onion Teriyaki sauce and stacked high on toasted artisan Italian bread, topped with American cheese, green peppers, red onion, and drizzled with the tangy new Sweet Onion Teriyaki sauce. The new Sweet Onion Steak Teriyaki is the height of food craveability. Give in to your cravings at Subway. Eat fresh.
America is listening to Fox News.
Senate negotiations could produce guidelines for new firearm legislation.
Texas Republican Tony Gonzalez represents Uvalde in Congress and says from what he's seen in a bipartisan framework, new legislation could make a difference in reducing gun violence.
Something is the answer, and I think this mental health package may lead us towards getting there.
Gonzalez says he expects Republican votes if the framework follows through on increasing mental health funding and enhances background checks. Senate negotiators are hopeful a framework is turned into legislation that could get a Senate vote later this week. In Washington, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
Transgender swimmers are effectively banned from women's events. FINA, the world swimming's governing body, voted against allowing swimmers who transitioned after age 12 to compete in women's competitions, saying transitioning after puberty gives transgender women an unfair advantage. A spin-off of one of the most successful animated series ever has a soft landing at the box office.
Lightyear lands in second place on its first weekend in theaters.
To infinity.
Are you trying to get me to pull your finger?
Don't fall for it. No, not like that. Sorry, it's a thing your grandma and I used to do.
Yeah.
The Pixar release blasting off with 51 million in ticket sales. Jurassic Park Dominion holding on to first place, selling $58.7 million worth of tickets in its second weekend. Top Gun Maverick takes the number 3 spot, adding 44 million in its fourth weekend in theaters. Kathleen Maloney, Fox News.
Tesla CEO Elon Musk congratulated the SpaceX team for conducting 3 flawless launches in 2 days. In 2022, Space.com reports SpaceX has completed 26 launches. I'm Richard Jordan, and this is Fox News.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarty Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Some things never change. The Second Amendment is still the same as it was last week, and so am I. Here I am, big as life, twice as ugly, moving right into Zemi Ikotny. And as I said, some things never change. You can count on the Daily News to not run a real editorial. It's a couple of guys named idlets have a hobby and they're building something, and the Daily News turned this into 3 pages of editorial, in the process saying almost nothing. Here is the punchline of their editorial. Si juus maase to the idlets for helping to make Guam better. Yeah.
They've turned that into a thank you column.
A what?
They've turned this into a thank you column.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. Let's recognize people and thank them for all their good work. Let's not write editorials when this is so much easier. Just find someone who did something nice that we really like and brag them up a little bit and say thank you, and we'll call it an editorial, and we will have filled that news hole. So what's the problem? Okay, let's go on to the card. And this is what I have on the card for today. I've got something I haven't done before. You'll recall that when I read in the rules of engagement at the beginning of every month, I criticize using the phrase, everybody knows that. That is not the source of knowledge. It is not the way to persuade people. Well, you know, everybody knows that that Gov Guam is for the employee. Well, we just don't use that phrase around here, except today. And I've got some everybody noses that I'm going to debunk. And then from there, I'm going to go to Dan Swavely versus Maneca Flores. And without a spoiler alert here, Dan Swavely mopped the floor with Maneca Flores. Then I've got the Daily News versus you. If you're depending on the Daily News to highlight what's really important for you, don't do it.
Wait, what?
Then I've got Clint versus motorists. Tall Tales versus the Youth Congress. Gura versus Michael San Nicolas. OPA versus 2 mayors, and then from last week, Cruz versus Champion, Levin versus, I never can remember what his name is, Levin versus Repeat or Peter or Dick or something like that. And then Marxism versus USA, and Dersh and Turley versus Nancy. So let's start out. Of course, we start with Paul Zerzan versus systemic racism. And Jose, you talked about Paul Zerzan a little bit last week when you were hosting the show.
Just a bit.
And you mentioned that you thought it was good that because he always stirs the pot, right? And that's true. But I don't see him stirring the pot just because he's got this big spoon in his hand. He doesn't know what else to do with it. I think he's a really valuable addition to issue spotting here on the island. because he's fearless. If he sees something that needs to be brought to the public's attention, he jumps in and does it. He doesn't care about political correctness or, our culture and the fact that the culture said that the rice is red, even though your eyes tell you it's orange. So I'm a Paul Zerzan fan. I really appreciate when Paul Zerzan comes forward and says something. And you remember the old E.F. Hutton commercials?
Everybody.
When E.F. Hutton talks, everybody listens. And that's Paul Zerzan. When Paul says something, a lot of people don't agree with him, but everybody pays attention to him. So, Paul, keep it up. Systemic racism. And let's see, I've got systemic racism, and then I've got everybody knows Dan Swavely versus Maneka. Oh yeah, I've gone through the whole thing down to Tersh versus Turley. Okay, so let's take a peek at the Public Law 36-34 section of the agenda, where we find out who in the government is so stupid they can't fill out a simple agenda and put the items that are going to be discussed in the meeting with a description of what that item is. We start out with the Guam Hybrid Land Use Commission. They do heavy duty stuff. If if something they do is declared void, it could have dynamic consequences. So they're having a meeting on Thursday, June 23, with one item. Well, they've got old business. You know what the old business is that they're going to discuss on June 23? You know what it is? Neither do I, because the agenda doesn't tell us. Making the whole thing an exercise in voidness. Then they've got item 4, and then item 5, administrative and miscellaneous matters. You can't do that, folks. Miscellaneous matters like what? Giving the director a raise? Kicking somebody off his property? You can't do that. And then they do have a heavy-duty item on their card, because here it is, item 4, new business. Item A, 2020-01. Guam Power Authority, conditional use permit request to allow for the construction and operation of the new APRIF 115 kV substation expansion on a portion of Lot 402-2 Santa Rita. A word to the wise here, videlicet sapiente, or excuse me, verbum sapiente, a word to the wise is enough. If you are somebody like the Power Authority and you're interested in the action that's coming up, ask permission to look at the agenda before they publish it, because obviously these characters don't care. They keep making the same mistakes over and over again, and if the action that they take is void, it doesn't hurt them, it hurts you. So Power Authority, if you're listening, check out these agendas before they're sent to the printer to make sure that they comply with the law, or you may have to do it all over again. You may miss a deadline. Bad things can happen. Okay, everybody knows. Here's some of the everybody knows. Number 1, lightning never strikes in the same place twice. That's bogus. The Empire State Building got hit 8 times in 24 minutes. But I have a philosophical question. If a guy gets hit by lightning in Oklahoma and later gets hit again in Florida, is he in the same place, or is a geographical place the place? One more, and then we'll come back to this tomorrow. Some people are left-brained, some people are right-brained. You've heard that one before. Actually, the two sides of the brain work together. There are, however, half-wits. Now, when I see this, the two sides of the brain work together, the lawyer in me wants to say, Your Honor, That states a fact, not an evidence. Because it seems to me when I go through the Public Law 36-34 every day, it seems like there are people putting together agenda that don't have left or right sides to their brains. Okay, we'll come back to, we'll pick up a couple of more of these tomorrow. Next item on the card, Dan Swavely versus Monica Flores. And this is a really nicely worded headline here, too. And, of course, I explained this before. The reporter who writes the story doesn't pick the headline. That would be the copywriter. Copywriter is supposed to find something that fits into the news hole. That's, counting spaces and letters and things that adequately describes the story it is headlining. Well, here is the headline for this article. Despite public testimony, Vista Del Mar gets approval to go forward. Now, the implication here is that when there's public testimony, the Land Use Commission won't approve anything because there was public testimony. That's kind of the implication. And it could have said something, abundance of testimony precedes Vista Del Mar getting approval to go forward. A little bit more neutral, but it's just a headline. Here's the article. The Guam Hybrid Land Commission approved tentative development plans for Vista Del Mar Friday after members of the public urged the commission to reject the proposal. The project, which would be built on undeveloped limestone forest. Now, if you don't understand, limestone, we have limestone forest on Guam? Well, everything north of Nimitz Hill is nothing but limestone, so it's not some strange thing that you really got to go out and look for. Everything north of Nimitz Hill is limestone forest, so it's not that big a deal. The project would be built on undeveloped limestone forest near Punta dos Amantes, and Tangisan includes a hotel, a water park, 3 condominium buildings, and 47 single-family homes. Support came from Guam Visitors Bureau President and CEO Carl T.C. Gutierrez, former GVB Chairman Mark Baldiga, management of the park at Two Lovers Point, and the Tamuning Municipal Planning Council. Commission staff recommended approval, finding the subject was compatible with development in the area, which is zoned for hotels. But community members talked about the limestone jungle in the area, the potential impact on the environment, including the nearby reef, the destruction of burial sites, the visual impact of the project, the effects on endangered species, the loss of native plants, and here's the biggie, cultural resources. If this goes through, this will be a desecration of ancestral Chamorro areas. Jose, I'll give you $100 if you could give me a description of the areas of Guam that are not ancestral Chamorro areas. Can you name one?
No.
I think I could name one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a trick question.
Mm-hmm.
There's an island out on the foot of a causeway in Agana.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It has a name, and I'll call it Shucks Island here on the air. Yeah. I don't think when they built that little island out there, I don't think that was a desecration of ancestral Chamorro areas. Everything else done on the island was. So that's really quite a distinction, isn't it? So Nicole Delisle Now, I wonder if I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's Delisle. Now, if I were to use and her, it's a hyphenated name, so you know she's really important. The second name after the hyphen it's spelled Duenas, but of course we know we pronounce it Duenas because the Daily News apparently can't put a tilde above an N when they're setting up their type. So if I were to use regular Spanish rules, Duenas, Duenas, that's pretty easy. Delisle, wouldn't that be Delisle? Nicole Delisle Duenas?
I happen to know this person, and it's Delisle.
Delisle.
Delisle, yes.
Oh, it's a good Chamorro name, right?
It's not Chamorro.
It's not?
Not the name. Delisle. But Duenas is.
The Duenas is. Well, but she could testify anyhow, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, anyhow, Nicole Delisle Duenas, after telling us about the desecration of ancestral Chamorro areas, tells us this. And there will be protests. What does she think that Justice Kavanaugh sits on the Land Use Commission? Yeah, let's print their names and addresses on the website, and then we can all go and make a nuisance in front of their houses until they change their mind about this. And that's the way you do things nowadays, Jose. Lacia Casil. Now, where have I heard that name before?
I think that's a GovGuam employee.
Isn't Lacia Casil the chairman of the Hagatna Redevelopment Authority? So
correct.
Is she testifying ex officio here?
I don't see anything that says that.
Yeah, and then isn't she also the president of, I won't get this right, but I'll give it a good shot. Isn't she the president of an LGBTQ RSTV XYZ plus organization here on the island?
That is correct.
Yeah. So I guess you'd have to look at the hat rack outside the hearing room to see what's on the hat rack, figuring she'd be wearing the one that she's testifying in, right? And then she's also the chairperson of Save Southern Guam, according to this article. Lacia Casil, chairperson of Save Southern Guam.
Someone ought to give her a compass.
Yeah. So I don't think Two Lovers Point is what we would ordinarily refer to as Southern Guam. She said that 2,587 signatures had been gathered on a petition opposing the development. Well, she just shot down her credibility there because she can't claim that the petition is anonymous, which gives it a whole lot more credibility. And then she goes on to say, although most were not residents of Tamuning, they are busybodies. So although they're not residents of Tamuning, she said the project is adjacent to the shoreline and beach, which belongs to all the people of Guam. Wow. Then we have Maneca Flores. But the division of the development didn't appeal to Maneca Flores. I'm just deeply disturbed. She's not just disturbed. She's deeply disturbed with the graphic images of destruction and desecration meant to take place on the coastline. For many generations, I used to have a really good handle on pronouns, Jose. I used to know exactly how pronouns worked. But nowadays, I'm never sure what someone means when they're using pronouns. She said, we have witnessed desecration. Now, who is we? Is that we in her cohorts? Is she Mapotgi? Is she using the editorial we as though she writes editorials for some newspaper? Is she talking about a clan or a tribe? We've witnessed horrible desecration, destruction, and contamination here in our own land. I think I'm beginning to figure out who the we is.
Well, they're not French.
They're not French. We. Yeah. And nicht verstehe Deutsch.
9.
So I have a feeling that she's not so subtly saying, for many generations of tomorrows, we've witnessed horrible, when you see the word desecration, that's usually a tip, and contamination here in our own land. So although Delisle says that the shoreline belongs to everybody, apparently Moneca is saying our own land means it all belongs to Chamorros. If you're not Chamorro, shut up. And then she goes on to say, and we have a legacy of irresponsible development. Oh my goodness. And our people, this is always a tell, our people. What's the difference between our people and the people? The people means everybody. Our people kind of comes from Lou Leon Guerrero's vocabulary. I was born here, Ray. You weren't. Therefore, I should be the governor. And our people have been deprived of having a voice in the decisions. The oppressed and the oppressor. You got to work that in there somewhere. So
it's like you said, people say because they say they spoke at a hearing means that the decision's going to go their way.
Absolutely. Otherwise, why bother going, right? Yeah, I got to turn my phone off here. Sorry about that. Yeah, let's see, where was I here? And our people have been deprived of having a voice in the decisions. Now, what are you doing there, Moneca, when you're shooting your mouth off at this hearing? Having a voice in the decisions to Moneca means not having a voice, but making the decision. Having a voice in the decisions that harm all that we've inherited from our ancestors. Now, I've explained this before, but Moneca's rap is what is ordinarily referred to, and I'll have to explain this, nativism. Nativism doesn't have anything to do with native inhabitants, indigenous, or anything like that. It's a word that has been used in American mainland politics since the 19th century. And in the 19th century, those folks who were against foreign immigration were known as nativists. Yeah, we all came from, we're all immigrants, but we were here first, and we don't want anybody else to come along. These folks were called nativists. They even had their own political party, which was very aptly named, a name we may even resurrect for Moneca, the Know Nothing Party. So maybe we'll start up the Know Nothing Party. We'll enroll Moneca and Ms. Delisle in the Know Nothing Party, right? And our people have been deprived of having a voice in the decisions that harm all that we've inherited from our ancestors. She told the commissioners they had a huge responsibility. Here's a direct quote. This is the money quote in this article here. She said, you will be responsible for the destruction of a very significant area for our community. But here's the real money in the quote. If you do move forward, this is like blood on your hands. blood on your hands. So I hope they have a police officer at these meetings, because what Maneka is obviously saying, that physical violence will take place. People will be bloodied, and the blood will get on the hands of the land use commissioners.
If this was Twitter, she'd be blocked. Or maybe not.
Maybe not. Well, she's probably on the right side of it, so it's okay. Now, the reason I put this on the card as Dan Swavely versus Maneka Flores. Maneka Flores, I'll characterize what she said. She didn't say anything. She made noise with her mouth. She trotted out all of the old shibboleths. All of it is laced with identity politics. The D word is absolutely applicable. This is demagoguery. There's nothing here that would be of any assistance to a person who is attempting to make a reasoned decision on this approach. That would be, things that would be not scientific, but have a factual basis. Just coming in and pouring out your emotions is not, it's technically testimony, but it's not what it's for. So I hope you got a charge out of delivering your emotions there, Maneka. But here's why Dan Swavely, this is a knockout. This is not a split decision. This is a knockout. This is what Dan Swavely said. He has often heard the term responsible development, but the exact definition of that term has been elusive. Certainly amongst the likes of Delisle and Flores. And here's Dan's definition. Today, I think at last I can offer one credible definition of responsible development. And it is this development entirely on private property within the current zone, with only allowable uses, with zero variances, after 4 legally noticed public hearings, with changes made to the proposed development in response to each public hearing, something the Daily News missed, and with the unanimous resolution of support from the Planning Council of the municipality in which the development is proposed. I submit this is responsible development. That's Vista Del Mar, and he's absolutely right. What Maneka wants to do is this. Take all of this structure that is designed to deal with problems like this, to even provide a microphone to stick in front of your big mouth, Maneka. She wants to discard all of that, because she can deliver a very emotional rap that makes sense to nobody except perhaps her and other driven people who specialize in identity politics instead of facts. So Dan Swavely runs this one by a knockout. All right, let's take a short break, and we'll go on with the next item on the card.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
We're already Pika's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better.
Announcing the point on Alexa.
Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Next item on the card is PDN versus you. And this begins with an article that ran in the Daily News entitled Lawmakers Tackle Gas Relief. And when I first got to the first article that dealt with this is the cat fight between Joe Terlahi and Speaker Therese Terlahi over which bill gets to be enacted. Therese is saying, my bill was introduced before yours. And Joe Terlahi is saying, well, mine is a moratorium instead of an outright suspension. Therefore, we should go with mine. And the whole performance, it was so sickening that last Tuesday I couldn't even read it. It was that, I couldn't even read it. It was that bad. I said, the heck with it, and went home. That was such an article. Okay, so the next article that comes out, at the very end of the article, or maybe it's the same article. At the end of the article, there's this paragraph with what the folks over at the Daily News apparently think is a throwaway. And it goes like this. Other measures. Besides cut to liquid fuel taxes, senators will also address Senator James Moylan's Bill 290 to cut business privilege taxes applied to fuel sales. Now, we know all about this bill because Jim Moylan hired somebody to stand out in front of the legislature with a little sign, somebody that looked just exactly like him. Or maybe it was some kind of one of those cardboard mock-ups. I think it was a cardboard mock-up because it looked just like Jim Moylan out there. Yeah, so there's that. And Clint Rigel's Bill 320 to cap the profits for local gas companies at 20%. You know, just another bill. That's the news, you guys. That is the news. The fact that Terlahi and San Augustine got in a skirt tearing contest, that happens all the time.
That's why they're there.
And that's why what they get paid for. But when a senator comes along and says, we're going to institute price controls here, that is news. That should have been followed up by an interview with Clint, a couple of guys in the petroleum industry, etc. That is real news. And that's why I say, if you're depending on these characters to spot the news for you and report on it, you got a problem. You got to really get into this yourself. Otherwise, you won't know who's doing what and to whom. And most of the time, it's being done to you. So there are so many good reasons to listen to Tall Tales that in 2 hours, I don't think I could count them all. But that's one more good reason. Because the papers and the TV stations are not going to tell you what the news is. I will. And this is news. Next item on the card, Clint versus motorists. Rigel, cap gas company profits instead of giving them tax breaks. Yeah, you know, when they're making too much money, they should pay their fair share of taxes. With lawmakers considering slashing taxes on gas to reduce the price at the pump during an emergency session on Friday, Senator Clint Rigel is asking that the legislature also consider capping profits for oil and gas companies operating on Guam. Now, I'll just get a little ahead of the game here and tell you this. Price controls always result in the same thing. Scarcity. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but it results in scarcity. So obviously, Clint's not running for re-election. He's doing us a big favor. I understand that he's going to the university to sign up for several courses in basic economics in case he ever wants to come back to the legislature again. Here's what Clint said. The oil industry has made record-breaking profits in 2021 and the first quarter of 2022 while blaming the high cost of fuel on market conditions. What a stupid thing. Blaming it on market conditions. It's this high cost of fuel that has afforded them their record-breaking profits, Rigel said. Introduced Thursday, Rigel's Bill 320, or the Guahan Fuel Price Control Act of 2022, would cap the cost of fuel at the landed price of a gallon plus 20%. So let's just stop here and hypothesize for a second. You know, I remember once upon a time, I took a course called Economics of Transportation over 60 years ago. And although a lot has changed and some of the facts are still the same, one of the things we learned in that class was that if you are on an ocean port, the cost of bringing oil to you is gasoline to you is a nickel a gallon. Shipping is very cheap. That was one of the principles back in the day. Of course, water transportation is cheaper than rail transportation and so on. And when you start hauling it around in trucks, it's a lot more expensive. So if the landed cost is, let's say the landed cost for a gallon of gas is $3, how much does it cost to get it out of the tanker into those huge bunkers down at the port, from the bunker into a truck, from the truck over the highway to a station, into the tank at the station, you know, with everybody taking a little profit along the way. And then all the costs, you know, building a gas station, I understand, cost about $2 million. By the time you dig the hole and put the tanks in, and those tanks are severely regulated, because obviously you can't be leaking gasoline into the soil. So somebody puts $2 million into a gas station, he's got to recover his investment. And the only way he recovers his investment is if he's able to sell the gasoline for more than it costs him to buy it. That's the P word, profit. So how do we know that if the landed cost is 20%, there's any profit at all? I don't know that. I suspect that somebody like Gary Hiles could maybe prove it to you. I don't think Clint Rigel could prove it to you. I think he just thinks 20% that's a nice number, right? They're making too much money, right? So landed price of a gallon plus 20%. Now, here's something else that's really interesting about Guam. If you buy a tank of gas down in PD that's just a short drive from the port, what is the price differential between buying from Shell up in Jigo, or one of the stations over in Telefofo, or with the Mauricio station when it was still open? It's the same price, even though it costs a lot more money to haul the gasoline to Jigo than it does to haul it to PD. And then think about this. The stations all charge the same price. The demand for gasoline, I would say, is probably very constant. The amount of gasoline sold per month probably increases slightly each month, but I suspect it's very constant. So let's say that I'm in the gasoline business and gasoline is selling for $6 a gallon. And my two competitors are selling for $6 a gallon. How can I sell more gas? Well, I could sell more gasoline by reducing the price of my gasoline. Okay, so they're all charging $6. I'm dropping my price to $5.99. everybody comes to my station and buys, right? Wrong. How far do I have to drop my price before people will not buy where they usually buy, but come to my station? Now, I suspect you got to get up to 25 or 30 cents a gallon before that happens. So if you're charging 20 or 30 cents a gallon less for your gasoline, how much more gasoline do you have to sell before you come out ahead? And I can't calculate that off the top of my head, but I would expect it's a fantastic amount of gasoline. Now, I know from my own experience driving around in the States, being a very Moschino, I see it as a game to buy the lowest price gasoline as I can. I've got an app on my phone called Gas Buddy, and I can tell you when you're driving around in the States, don't buy at that little mom and pop store downtown, especially if you need the restroom, because it'll be one restroom. I would have ordinarily said one restroom for both sexes. Now I got to say all sexes. And you may have to wait a long time to get in there. But that's probably the most expensive gas you can buy. If you buy your gasoline from a truck stop, like Petro or Love's or TA, if you buy your gasoline from a truck stop on the outskirts of a relatively large city, you can sometimes save yourself 15 or 20 cents a gallon gasoline. Now, even within the interior of cities, I've seen disparities of 25 cents a gallon. So you could drive a block and save 25 cents a gallon. I wonder how the price stations stay in business. And I guess because a lot of folks are not price sensitive. They buy their gas and they don't care what the price is. So what I'm saying is, this is not scientific, this is just anecdotal, my own observations. I think that price competition amongst the three brands that we have here is impossible. That lowering the price to increase volume, if carried to the final extreme, would cause one gasoline station to go out of business. Clinton probably knows a whole lot more about this because he understands landed cost in 20%. The senator in a release points to reports from the Center for American, and here's a key word here, the Center for American Progress. That tells you everything you need to know, which found that the first quarter profit for Shell in 2022 was $9.1 billion, a 280% increase from the first quarter of the previous. Now, we're not telling you how Shell did the previous quarter. Maybe Shell lost money because when you're dealing with volatile prices, sometimes you make out, sometimes you lose. You buy the gasoline at $6 a gallon, and I've seen this happen so many times, especially in the States. You buy the gasoline at $6 an hour, a gallon, I'm just using round figures here, and 3 days later, the price is down to $3.35. You're sitting there with tanks full of $6 a gallon gasoline. And of course, every motorist will understand, well, you have to pay $6 for that because that's how much it costs me. No, you've got to drop your price. So with a volatile commodity like gasoline, the companies sometimes take it in the shorts. It's just the nature of the business. So people with extremely sharp pencils have to do the pricing here, and they have to figure out how they can remain profitable over the long term. That's what their shareholders demand. Okay. ExxonMobil saw an $8.8 billion first quarter profit, a 320% increase, while ConocoPhillips saw 4.3 or 480. This gets me to a very large so what. We got to take a break. I'll come back to beat up on talk about Clint's bill in just a minute.
Joyce Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning show.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all three.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
Hafaday, Patsy Gogri from Security Title here with information about what a title company does. The title side of our business determines who owns a property and guarantees your ownership with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has the management of real estate closings down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
All right, so here we are back to Clint. Here's the money line in Clint's this article from Clint. Clint says not total sales, not gross revenue, but profits. Profits at the expense of the people. I wonder if Maneka Flores works in his office. Writes his dialogue for him. Now, here we go. This is not capitalism. This is profiteering, stated Rigel. This is not capitalism. So when a company sells something at the price that people are willing to pay, that's not capitalism. It's profiteering. So Clint's remedy for profiteering is what anybody would tell you is fascism, where the government doesn't control the factors of production, but the government regulates them centrally, a central planned economy at the direction of the government. This is not capitalism. This is profiteering. Prices for regular grade fuel had increased $1.44 in just the last 6 months, while profits for oil companies soared, Rigel stated, and providing a tax break makes no sense. Well, Clint, I think the tax break is not for the oil companies. I think the tax break is for the people that buy the gasoline. No! According to the senator, the Guam Water Works Authority recently entered into now here's the key word here, into a multi-year fuel contract to receive regular grade fuel at $2.92 a gallon and diesel at $2.80. Prices were based on Platts Asia Pacific market scan for Singapore cargoes plus service fees. Why was GWA able to buy gasoline for its fleet at $2.92 a gallon? Well, how long was that multi-year contract, Clint? If it was a 10-year contract, I could understand it. If you paid attention to what I just said about the volatility of gasoline prices. So the folks at the oil companies figure these things out over the long term. And obviously when you buy in the quantity that the Power Authority does, the market suggests that oil companies want to make that sale. So there's going to be real price competition there for a long-term contract. If they're buying for 1 year, they probably have to pay the same thing that we do. But we aren't able to go down and cut long-term contracts for our stuff. Why was GWA able to buy gasoline for its fleet at $2.92 a gallon? Well, I just explained that. Why is gasoline so much cheaper on base? I think it must be because the oil and gasoline companies have massive profit margins. Massive profit margins that are breaking the backs of the people. You got to work the word culture in there somewhere, Clint. Just breaking the backs of the people is good, but it's not really everything that you need to say. Well, once again, if Clint, the way the capitalistic system works, if oil companies are making these gigantic profits, then somebody else is going to say, I'm going to go into business there because the profits are so huge. All right, let's see. I got Simon on the line. You know, Simon, I want to have a chat with you, and I don't want to break it up for the halftime show. So if you don't mind, can you hang on till after the break? And I'll come back, and I will give you leave to soapbox, something very seldom done. I'll just continue here talking about Clint. So the way capitalism works, when a company moves into an area and is able to make large profits, somebody else moves in right beside it. Now, my understanding is, and I heard this somewhere, I can't remember where, but when McDonald's goes for a location, they look for a fast food restaurant like one of their competitors. And if that competitor is making money on that spot, McDonald's wants to locate next to them, not on the other end of town. Because if there's money to be made, new businesses open up.
Profiteering.
It's profiteering. Yeah, you know, actually, Jose, truth be told, I'm going to be really candid here. These businesses, they're only interested in one thing.
What's that?
Making a profit.
How dare they?
They're not interested in helping the people.
How dare you?
They're only interested in making a profit. So by coming up with a cockamamie bill like this, what we're going to do sooner or later, we're going to induce scarcity. Because if you don't control the price of diesel and you do control the price of gasoline, where does the operator make his biggest profit? On diesel. So maybe he won't bring in as much gasoline because he can make more profit on diesel. And then, of course, if there is anyone who's interested in investing in the gasoline business on Guam, just one bill like Clint's sends a really nice signal. I can see him back in the boardroom back in the oil patch in Texas. Should we open up a storage facility and some stations in Guam? No, I don't think so, because they got a local government out there, a local legislature, and the senator introduced a bill that would tax everything above what he considers a 20% profit. We don't want to go anywhere where governments think they can tell us how much profit we can make.
Does he consider government surplus from taxes coming in profiteering?
Probably, yeah, like the
I hope so.
Yeah, like the 70 million surplus they got right now. Yeah, they should give that back to the people, right? Okay, is it time for the big halftime show, Jose?
Just about.
Just about, yeah. So when it comes to, I haven't given a dumb idea trophy for a long time, but Clint, you get it today. And this article really dovetails quite nicely with the next article on the calendar, which deals with the Youth Congress.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Tough times ahead. I'm Richard Jordan, Fox News. A former secretary for the Treasury Department warns of an upcoming recession.
Recall John Larry Summers' grave warning before passing the $1.9 trillion COVID stimulus bill, saying it would cause skyrocketing inflation. The Wall Street Journal is reporting the chances of a recession over the next 12 months is now at 44%. That's the highest in 15 years. President Biden threatening oil companies with, quote, emergency powers if they don't boost supply to lower those gas prices. Exxon fired back, saying the White House can help them by providing, quote, clear and consistent policy.
Fox's Lucas Tomlinson at the White House. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says a recession is not inevitable.
It's natural now that we expect a transition to steady and stable growth, but I don't think a recession is at all inevitable.
Yellen on ABC's This Week. Consumer prices rose 8.6% in May, the biggest jump in more than 40 years. A Republican senator is not yet ready to support any legislation that says who can get or possess a gun.
Utah Senator Mike Lee said on Fox News Sunday the main reason for his hesitation is that there is no bill written.
That we not punish law-abiding Americans for the wrongs carried out by the criminally minded and the insane.
Lee says restricting some gun access may poll well with the public, but until there's text to a bill, no one really knows what it will do.
Fox's Gurnaw Scott. The summer travel season is getting off to a rough start.
Airlines delayed or canceled thousands of flights again, and many more delays might be coming. The airlines are blaming a combination of staff shortages and bad weather right now.
Fox's Jackie Ibanez. America's listening to Fox News.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. More than shoes. Bank Pacific. Where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
A juror anonymously speaks out about the trial between actor Johnny Depp and his ex-wife, Amber Heard.
This is the first time we are hearing from one of the jurors about their thoughts during the wildly publicized defamation trial. The juror, who is not giving his name or juror number, spoke with Good Morning America, saying he didn't feel Amber Heard came across as believable during the trial, saying, quote, the crying, the facial expressions that she had, the staring at the jury. All of us were very uncomfortable. She would answer one question and she would be crying, and 2 seconds later, she would turn ice cold.
Fox's Laura Ingle. A magnitude 6.0 earthquake shook Taiwan Monday morning. The quake struck the central east coast of the island and was felt across the north. There are no immediate reports of damage or any injuries. A late-night show production team was arrested on Capitol Hill.
Well, the group of 7 was working, of course, for the late-night show Stephen Colbert, and they were arrested in the Longworth House office building Thursday night. Sources tell Fox News that earlier in the day they had been escorted out of a January 6th committee hearing because they lacked the proper press credentials. After being kicked out of the Capitol complex, they found a way back in. Fox News' Chad Pergram was the first on this story, reported that it was an aide for Massachusetts Democrat Jake Auchincloss who let the group back in to go about unattended. In a statement, the U.S. Capitol Police wrote in part that the building was closed to visitors, and these individuals were determined to be part of a group that had been directed by the USCP to leave the building earlier in the day.
Fox's Alexandria Hoff. Yellowstone National Park could reopen within the next 2 weeks. Record floods pounded the region last week, knocking out major roads. Now, while the park can accommodate visitors, it will take many months to reconnect the park's roads with some southern Montana communities. I'm Richard Jordan, and this is Fox News.
Half a day. Patsy Gogri from Security Title here with information about what a title company does. The title side of our business determines who owns a property and guarantees your ownership with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has the management of real estate closing down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
We're already Pica's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing the point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
Subway's Eat Fresh Refresh brings you the sequel to the Sweet Onion Chicken Teriyaki. Enjoy the new Sweet Onion Steak Teriyaki. Delight your taste buds with tender, juicy steak marinated in the tangy new Sweet Onion Teriyaki sauce and stacked high on toasted artisan Italian bread, topped with American cheese, green peppers, red onions, and drizzled with the tangy new Sweet Onion Teriyaki sauce. The new Sweet Onion Steak Teriyaki is the height of food capability. Give in to your cravings at Subway. Eat fresh.
Okay, here we are back again on Tall Tales. I'm waiting for Simon to call up so we can put him on and talk about Clint's latest great idea. In the meantime, somebody reminded me of Gorko. There is a oil refinery down in the Santa Rita area called Gorko, and at one time it was the 5th largest American defense contractor in the world. Well, when our senators saw that, they we got to tax that. So they introduced a bill to tax Gorko, beyond the ordinary taxation. And Gorko folks went to him and said, "You enact this tax, we're going to close down." It was the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? The tax was enacted, Gorko closed down. So we had our own oil refinery right here. But, the Clint Rigel idea of when people are making profits, we got to do something about it, caused us to lose that refinery. Good afternoon, Simon.
Hey, Your Honor. Great to have you back on the air. You made us all a little nervous last week.
Well, I'm glad to be back.
All right. Now, I wanted to call in. Actually, I know you're going to get to the discussion on the capping of profits, which is just actually the second reason I called. But the first reason I called is when Senator Rigel refers to this contract for $2.92 a gallon that GWA recently executed for its fleet fuel, unfortunately, well, depending on your point of view, he's misreading the contract. And in fact, when the PDN ran the story, there was an excellent exchange between him and another reader about how he had misread the contract, because the contract, we are paying $2.92 a gallon in addition to the market price for fuel or gas in this case, right? And like GPA, whenever GPA or GWA is putting out bids for fuel, every bid says you're going to pay market price. Like in the case of the GWA contract, it's based on the Platts benchmark, right? I think it's like for the 10 days before they deliver the fuel, they read the Platts benchmark, they take the average price. I'm sorry, that's the LEAC. For this one, I think it's the 30-day average benchmark price based on Platts, a benchmark, right, that measures global prices. You take that average, and then they add $2.92 a gallon on top of that. So the first error I saw in the press release was the misunderstanding that GWA is paying $2.92 a gallon. We're paying $2.92 a gallon on top of the market price. And the way that works is the $2.92 pretty much covers the cost of freight, a tanker bringing the fuel over, for them to unload it, and then for them to deliver it to wherever GWA's fleet pump is. I'm not even quite sure where that is, or we may have more than one site. But that $292 is really the cost to get it here, and it's right there in the bid that was awarded, and in the RFPs, the winning bid says $292 in addition to this benchmark 30-day average Platt pricing. So he's not. I wish he was correct. I wish we were only getting $292 a gallon, but he's not.
You know,
It's
sometimes,
$2.92 a gallon.
sometimes, Simon, the narrative is so good you don't want to spoil it by checking the facts.
You're correct, but we don't want to mislead people.
No.
Right, and it's not accurate to say that we're getting it for $292. We're getting it for $292 plus the average market price for that refined fuel, and that's what you're alluding to. It's Economics 101. There is no fuel supplier in the world that's going to give you a fixed price for the oil, because oil is a commodity. It's globally traded and it's priced in different ways. And as you alluded to, I was in Oklahoma and Texas, and they were crying because gas had gone up $1 a gallon to $4.25 a gallon. Gas is going up everywhere. Oil is going up everywhere. Even the military, even you talk to the National Guardsmen, they go gas up. Their prices have gone up. You go buy on base, prices have gone up. No one is going to give anybody, the federal government, the National Guard, or GWA, a fixed price for the oil. So when they bid for our fuel contracts, whether it's GPA's LEAC or GWA's fleet fuel, it's always market price plus in addition. And the in addition is all these bidders ever bid on. They only bid on the cost to bring the fuel to Guam. In the case of the LEAC, a tanker has to come to Guam 8-10 times a year, and it brings in a tanker of fuel just for GPA, and GPA pays market price plus. And the winning bidder is the one that says $10 a barrel or $9.50 a barrel or $11 a barrel for the next 3 years. That's what they all bid on. No one ever says, I'm going to not only lock in your freight price, I'm going to lock in your commodity price for the next 3 years. That's just not how the world works when it comes to selling oil. Similarly, in this case, he's referring to a contract that I wasn't on island, but last month at a duly noticed meeting on the agenda was an approval of a fuel contract for the fleet, all the trucks that GWA drives around. And the winning bidder, the winning bid was $2.92 a gallon. And then the key phrase in the winning bid, in addition to the 30-day average market price based on Platts, in this case, for the actual commodity, the actual refined fuel. So either he misunderstood or he's misreading the award. And in fact, in the PDN exchange with some total stranger, but I was just reading it, he caught it right away. He just went and he said, have you looked at the contract? And it's very clear that it's $2.92 plus market price. So I just wanted to throw that in and then leave you to the rest of your discussion, because like you, I'm very nervous when the government is about to set prices or profits. That is something the market should do, and sometimes we like the market and sometimes we don't like the market, but we clearly don't want a situation, when where the government is setting prices. I mean, why do you cap it at 20% profit? Why don't you cap it at 0 profit, right? Or 1%? It's arbitrary. And as you alluded to, that profit pays for the gas station, the guys the folks working at the gas station, the power to run the gas station, the cost of that underground tank. All that's amortized into a price per gallon that is marked up on top of the price of fuel.
Consider water. You guys don't pay a nickel for the water. The water's free.
Correct.
But
it's
yet
the cost to get the water to your house.
You charge us a lot of money to, just so we could turn the faucet on and get that free water. It's just not fair.
Well, fairness is in the eyes of the beholder, as you know, Your Honor.
Yeah.
but if you want the water, pipes aren't free, chemicals aren't free, pumping electricity to pump the water isn't free. Same with the wastewater, right?
And the same with gasoline.
Even the wastewater is free. It's the pumping to get it out of your house and over to the wastewater plant. That's what people are paying for.
And the same thing with gasoline. The fact that you know how much a gallon of gasoline would cost at the refinery is relevant to how much you're going to pay for it at the pump. But it's a much longer story than that.
Right. Absolutely. And it's no surprise to me that, I mean, we can be unhappy that there's three providers of fuel here and their prices are always the same, but they all get it from the same place. They build roughly the same gas stations. They pay roughly the same labor, and that's what they're going to charge because that's what the market will bear. And they're clearly not going to charge for the oil below, what is it now, 110, 120 a gallon? I mean, a barrel. No refinery is going to sell it to them, much less them being able to ship it here, turn around and sell it to you and me. So there's no secret sauce or magic bullet for the cost of oil. It's a globally traded commodity. We're all dealing with it. None of us like it, but all of us are still pulling into gas stations to gas up. But in the case when Senator Ruggiero refers to the GWA contract, he's misreading the award. It's $2.92 a gallon plus the cost of oil, basically.
Well,
and I wanted to throw that in there.
We have to wonder: is he misreading? Because
it's pretty clear. I mean, if the average citizen can go online, he found our contract, and I communicated with him. It was in the PDN story last week, and he found the contract, and he was debating with Senator Ruggiero online in the PDN. And he said, "Have you read the contract?" And I had read the contract, and I sent him a note privately. I said, "You're correct, sir. It's $2.92 a gallon plus, and the $2.92 is for the cost of delivery, insurance, and getting it to Guam. The rest of it is the cost of oil, the commodity price, which when we had COVID 3 years ago was $20. Last June it was $80. Today it's $120. It's the global commodity and how it's traded and how it's valued and how it's used and how it's supplied and demand, basic economics. And right now the oil companies are making a nickel. But even the guy pointed out in the PDN article, you make so much a gallon or so much a percentage of profit, whatever it is, as the cost of oil goes up. Yeah, your percentage will stay the same, but your dollar figure will increase. And I mean, that's just basic math and basic economics. But the main reason we're all paying so much at the gas stations is the cost of oil has changed dramatically due to global market conditions. Whether you want to yell at President Biden or yell at Putin or yell at whomever you want to yell at, the current price of oil, for a whole bunch of reasons, is much higher than it was a year ago. At one time, it was $20 a gallon when COVID first started. I mean, and there's an example of oil can drop to 20, it can go to 120. It's the oldest game in town. It's called economics, global economics.
Well, see, if you're building a story, your own narrative, you got to start out with something like this, Simon. Not total sales, not gross revenue but profits. Profits at the expense of the people. This is not capitalism. This is profiteering. And then you got to find stuff like the $2.92 a gallon that you guys are paying for gasoline to make it all work.
Yep. And you can tax sales like we do, gross receipts tax or sales tax or liquid fuels tax, and you can tax profits. But when you start saying, I'm going to set prices and I'm going to cap profits, I totally agree with you. That is a recipe for economic disaster in which, in all cases, something's going to get rationed. You're either going to say, gas stations are going to say, hey, if I'm capped at 20%, I'm not going to sell gas to Guam. How's everybody going to feel about that, right? We need gas on Guam. We need gas everywhere. And clearly, I don't believe the senator will have internal information on the profit margins of the oil suppliers. And, my understanding of the economics, it doesn't surprise me that the three competitors on Guam sell fuel for pretty much the same price at the same time, because they're all getting it from the same place. And then they have the same cost to build a gas station, the same labor costs, the same liquid fuels tax. Actually, I was going to ask you, Your Honor, do you recall as a senator, I didn't think we taxed GRT on fuel. I thought it was just the liquid fuels tax. But do they also pay the GRT on the price of the fuel? In other words, we pay so many cents a gallon for the liquid fuels tax, and then we pay another 4 times $6, $7, 24 cents. I didn't think that we taxed the fuel. I thought liquid fuels tax was the only thing. But I'm getting older. I've been in the legislature for a while, and I just trying to. I didn't think we taxed it, but maybe we do. But in any case, the $2.92. It's inaccurate to say that that's all we pay for the fuel. We pay cost in addition to the market price for the fuel, and that's accurate.
Sure makes for a good
agreement. You would see it.
Sure makes for a good story. Well, thanks for, as usual, calling in and setting the record straight for us, Simon. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Your Honor. All right, back to listening.
Hello.
Enjoy your show.
Yeah. So, yeah, when you got a really good, GPA Waterworks is only paying $2.92 a gallon. How do these guys get away charging all that money for gasoline?
And now for the rest of the story.
Exactly, yeah. And the sad thing for Clint about credibility, once you come up with a whopper like this and get caught, you'll never get it back this term, Clint. You're going to have to sit out a while and come back and try again.
And you you ended the last hour with, and speaking of Youth Congress.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So this is really something.
But is it wrong to think of this mindset of capping profits, but totally ignoring or not even recognizing that the government has a surplus, which specifically should not be? I know it's not profits,
yeah,
but they're sitting on stuff that's not theirs.
Yeah,
that's specifically not theirs.
Revenue exceeding expenditures.
Right, and if we have a budget that's already been met and exceeded, then that money doesn't belong to the government. That's my philosophy.
I agree that taxes should be held at the very minimum. Okay, well, we'll give Clint a rest here, and it is Monday. It's Red Shirt Monday. I'm wearing one of my red shirts. It's time for the Hope Cristobal screen test. So stay tuned. Get your popcorn, and we'll go to Hope's screen test.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Joyce Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning shows.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning Mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all three.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
So here we are at Wrigley, seventh inning stretch. We go from the seventh inning stretch at Wrigley Field straight to Hollywood, where Hope Cristobal is having a screen test at a major studio to see if she's really movie material or not. As you're watching the screen test, pay special attention to the counter demonstration that's going on. Okay, let's go, Jose.
Colonizer. You're nothing but a white colonizer. That's who you are. Colonization. It's the same thing as slow murder. You're a murderer. That's who you are. We need to just do different. We need to do better. Get off my island.
Sir, you need to go. You can't be policing here and telling people how to protest or what to protest for. You need to go. You need to go. I'm against this. That's cool, but you cannot be policing with some people and telling them how to protest and what to advocate for. She has a right to yell.
I'm an indigenous tomorrow. I have more rights here than you are. You came here because of the structures of colonialism, asshole. You need to leave.
You need to go.
Please.
You need to get out of here.
Please, sponsor.
Get out of here.
Please, this is not your place.
When I get a chance, go.
Please, thank you. Thank you, sponsor. Please, please. Oh, you think not?
What happened, ma'am?
Well, he confronted me.
What did he
He's
say?
telling me I shouldn't be here. I support Black Lives Matter. It's part of the colonialistic systemic racism. And I came here to support these people. He's a white man that has come here. And he continues the legacy of colonialism. He continues to fight people, individuals. My goodness. I'm a former senator. I authored the Commission on Decolonization. Karoho. Ay, mamalo.
We are proud of you, Auntie.
Si Diyos mangasi.
Well, there you go. That's Hope Cristobal, the face and voice of the separatist movement here on the island. And I ask that you pay special attention to the counter demonstration. Well, there's an article that ran in Pacific Island Times about Hope Cristobal and the fact that she's been nominated for, are you ready for this? The Nobel Peace Prize by another one of the separatists. Name, what's her name? University professor.
Natividad,
yeah. Nominated Ms. Cristobal for the Nobel Peace Prize, and I think you can understand how much she deserves it. So this this article that ran in Pacific Island Times talks a little bit about what you just saw, and this is what it says. Where is that part? Just bear with me for a second here. I had it right in front of me, and now I can't find it. Oh, yeah. As an activist, Cristobal is not afraid of confrontation. Quote, at the Black Lives Matter rally in Hagåtña last year, there were counter-protesters harassing us. Oh, that counter-protester. That's Paul Zerzan, man. He's just hell on wheels, isn't he? She said, I wasn't afraid. I didn't back down. There are always people out there who will challenge you. Those are just part of the journey. It can be hard because I'm an educator. I went to the Black Lives Matter rally because I want to show my support for oppressed people. I follow the news and I'm aware that innocent people are getting killed just because of their skin. We need to see each other beyond the color of our skin. You're a white man. I have more rice hair than you do. Get off our island. Yeah. You know, this is one of those things that if you hadn't seen it with your own eyes, if I just told you about it, you'd say, Bob, I know the name of the show is Tall Tales, but aren't you kind of embellishing a little bit? Well, if you can see, if you watched it, you know I'm not embellishing at all. That's exactly what happened. And I'm going to play it again next Monday, so if you have a friend that hasn't seen it, make sure you bring them over and let them watch it next Monday, because this is the face and voice of Chamorro self-determination, Chamorro independence. That's what it's all about. Okay, I want to go back a little bit more to Clint's Folly here. Clint's bill, and not only is it a really dumb idea. Anytime the government wants to regulate the price of anything, it's a bad idea that will only result in scarcity. It can't go any other way. We have something in our heads called a market system, a free market system. It works really, really well over the long run. People will spend their money on what they want to buy. They'll spend it for one thing and not for another, etc. So Clint wants to regulate the price of gasoline by saying if you charge more than the profit that I think is appropriate, we're going to fine you $1,000 every day. Well, starting right out with the really simple stuff, maybe if it's as bad as Clint says it is, maybe the $1,000 a day is just the cost of doing business. We're making so much money off this stuff, we'll pay $1,000 a day, so what? But then the mechanism that he sets up to make this thing work, and he says, first of all, the Attorney General is to determine the landed cost. And then he says, when determining the landed price of an automotive fuel product, a gallon, the Office of Attorney General shall collect data referencing the average of the effective prices reported for all the daily postings of the previous month in Platts for Singapore cargo, plus the ocean transportation cost, if additional. Once the landed price has been determined, the OAG, the Office of the Attorney General, shall compute the maximum dollar amount per gallon, plus up to an additional 20% that the fuel product could have been sold at wholesale or retail to any consumer. The Office of Attorney General shall maintain a daily log reflecting the collected data used. This log shall form the basis for any disputes, etc. And then if the Attorney General becomes aware of profiteering, he issues a notice, and the merchant's got 24 hours to bring his price back down. And if not, if the merchant believes the computation is in error, the OAG, the Office of Attorney General, shall be informed, and both parties shall meet within 5 days to further review and discuss computations. Any fine assessed by the Attorney General shall be held in abeyance pending the final resolution to be computed. When the final determination has been made and a fine is in order, the fine shall be assessed from the first date notice. So if this became law and you think the computations are wrong, who does the computation? The Attorney General. You sit down and the Attorney General will talk to you for 5 days, and if the Attorney General doesn't change your mind, you got to pay it back to the first day. And the due process comes in. No, there's no due process. The appeal, no, there's no appeal. And the regulatory agency here that's going to, that is the chief legal officer for the island of Guam is the Attorney General, who is now going to be the price controller for oil. Clint, if you're going to do it, you can't have the attorney, you got to at least have Rev Tax do it, for crying out loud. But what an amateurish attempt to grandstand here. Hey, oil, the price of gas is going up. Clint is going to get those doggone gas stations. They're charging too much profit. Clint's going to get them. Nice going, Clint. Just what a flop this is. This is your swan song. This is your legacy, Clint, what people will remember you for after your term in the legislature is over. Clint saved the people from high gasoline prices. What a joke.
Nope.
Yeah. I suppose there's some speculation as to what Clint will be doing once he's no longer in the legislature. Maybe we could hire him as a joke writer for Tall Tales, Jose. Kind of cut out of the same cloth. Next item on the card is Tall Tales versus the Youth Congress. And we have a bill, Bill 264, that's going to be heard on Wednesday by the Committee on Air Transportation, Parks, Tourism, Higher Education, Advancement of Women, Youth and Senior Citizens, and other frivolous topics. By request of a Congresun Manhoban Guahan, the Guam Youth Congress, in accordance with 2 GCA 7102. And here's the title of it. An act to add a new Chapter 93, Title 9, Guam Code Annotated, relative to providing family members of an individual who they fear is a danger to himself, herself, I guess they don't know the word their self, or others, new tools to prevent gun violence, and to cite this act as the Gun Violence Prevention Order Act of 2021. Well, finally, someone's doing something here.
I didn't vote for them.
No, I didn't either. And I would vote to do away with that whole boondoggle.
Now, I have no problem with mock UN or a mock Congress, one-time things, right, just to give them an idea.
Yeah.
But this is just a breeding ground that just needs to stop.
Let's get a bunch of impressionable kids together and teach them a lot of really bad habits. This will equip them for life. You know, there's nothing that a kid can learn in the Youth Congress except perhaps by watching negative examples.
And we're one of the adults that keep promoting these bills into the Senate, into the legislature, and that's the legislature.
Yeah. Well, you can't discuss the Youth Congress and youth representatives on boards and commissions without using the word pander. Children are to be pandered to. Because, you know, everybody likes kids, and everybody was one once. And kids, you know, 17-year-old kids have birthdays, they can become voters, so you want to get them when they're young. I mean, that's what every totalitarian dictator has ever said. Give me the kids when they're young, and I'll have them for life. So it pays to have, you know, a youth representative on the Board of Education. It makes no sense, but it pays. And the same with this Youth Congress boondoggle here, where they actually pay the kids. I think it's $25 a session or something like that.
Why? It's a law, though, right?
Yeah, it is. And, you know, in the mainland, they have these things called boy state and girl state. And what they do at boy state, they'll have a mock state legislature, and they'll run it for 2 days. So if you want to know,
that's it.
Yeah, you find out how a state legislature runs, and that's it. But it doesn't even have any pretense to having any governmental authority, and we have that here.
And they're all employed now when they become adults. I'm not going to say all of them, but you're going to look at the senators' offices and some of these workers up there at Adelup, and I bet you a majority came from these breeding grounds.
Well, here's a final argument. Rory was a speaker of the legislative of the Youth Congress once upon a time. Yeah.
Rest my case.
Yeah. So you look at the bill, and I've got some highlights here I want to bring forward. You start out with definitions. C, this is 93.01 C. Subsection C, gun violence prevention order means a written order issued by the Superior Court or signed by a magistrate. Now, where would you find a magistrate? And don't all court orders have to be signed by a judge or a magistrate? Well, here we have the anthropomorphization of the Superior Court because we need a written order from the Superior Court or signed by a magistrate, and then a parenthetical phrase, or other comparable judicial officer. Who would that be? The clerk at the window? The parking lot attendant? It just shows you whoever put this together didn't know what he was doing. Because if you're going to have something that has a judicial dimension, you name the officials that have the duties.
This could be a true example of parroting legislation.
Exactly. Yeah, parroting or parodying.
Parodying.
Either one. And then subsection 1. These orders prohibiting a named individual from having under the custody or control of the individual owning, purchasing, or possessing or receiving any firearms. Now, I suppose it's possible to untangle that sentence, but I ain't going to do it. And then you've got subsection D, which says that an individual who is subject to a gun violence prevention order and who is known to own or possess one or more firearms, that directs a law enforcement officer can be directed to temporarily seize and retain any firearm in the possession of the individual. So we got some search and seizure here, right? That what's the word that pops into your mouth when you talk search and seizure? Fourth Amendment. Fourth Amendment, yeah. I don't think the Fourth Amendment applies when you're talking about gun violence. In general, the superior court or magistrate or other comparable judicial officer may issue a gun violence prevention order upon a finding that there is a reasonable suspicion that possession of a firearm by the named individual poses a significant risk of personal injury to the individual or others. Okay, the standard here is reasonable suspicion. Okay, let's talk standards. Standards of proof. So the highest standard of proof in any kind of court case is a criminal case where the evidence must show beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant committed the crime without defense or excuse, beyond a reasonable doubt. The next highest standard you find in some civil cases, especially regulatory cases, clear and convincing evidence. It's not a beyond a reasonable doubt, but it's higher than a preponderance of the evidence, which is a standard for civil cases. A preponderance of the evidence means something is more likely than not. They're down to reasonable suspicion. Reasonable suspicion is, well, yeah, there's something there. I don't know what it is, but there's definitely something there. I suppose in common language it would be, well, there's smoke, and where there's smoke, there's fire. So if you were to assign numerical coefficients to these different standards, you start out with beyond a reasonable doubt. That's up in the high 90s. You drop down to clear and convincing, that's down in the 70s. Beyond a reasonable doubt, 51%. Reasonable suspicion, down in the teens. So you want a cop to come over to your house and search your house and take your guns away from you because someone went to court and laid out a rap for the judge that created reasonable suspicion that there's a danger. I wonder if Clint is a consultant to the Youth Congress here. This is just an incredibly dumb idea.
You were talking a little bit about due process as well this morning.
Yeah.
Right on this.
Well, the way it works, and the statute is not the masterpiece of clear draftsmanship. Part of the statute says that the burden of proof on the Attorney General is And then the beginning of the statute says in order to get one, you go before a magistrate, a judge, or the superior court, and you tell him your story. The magistrate asks you questions, and any witnesses that you bring. He asks the other person questions, any witnesses that he brings. If he happens to be there, if he's not, and there's no compulsory use of process to bring him in or give him notice or anything like that. So the way I read it, and this in the real world, if this becomes law, this will happen. The mother gets mad at the father. This happens all the time. And she's got a smart neighbor, and the neighbor says, go down to the court and tell him about his guns and tell him that you're afraid. And that's all it takes.
That's called legalized doxing. And we see this when people call in emergencies to houses that they know nothing's going on, but they call it in, and the police actually raid that place.
Sure.
It happens all over the states.
Yeah. Well, the joke amongst lawyers is that if you represent a woman in a divorce case and you don't allege family violence, it's malpractice, whether there is any or not. You know, it's just part of the form, the standard form for a divorce. So this will make it 15 times worse than it's not that it's good now, but you know we have right now, as far as I know, we have the strictest gun control law in the nation. If there were a firearm laying here on my desk, and you came in and picked it up, and I had a cop waiting, you could be arrested just for picking it up if you don't have a firearms ID. You can't even hold a gun in your hand if you don't have a firearms ID. And in order to get a firearms ID, you have to be fingerprinted. Fingerprints are sent off to the FBI, who do the NIC check, etc. No firearms ID, no guns. Every gun that you buy is registered, so every gun is traceable to somebody. It's just if you have a firearm and it's not locked up, if there's no trigger lock or if it's not locked in a box, and a minor sneaks in and steals it and goes out and commits serious damage with it, you are strictly liable for the damage that minor did. Really, really strict law. And to the best of my knowledge, we haven't had any of these shootings. The closest we came was when some disappointed husband came to the Seventh-day Adventist clinic and killed somebody. That's not good. And if there will be some way to have stopped it, I'd have been all for it. But BS like this, it just complicates the matter. I'm tempted to prepare testimony and go down there, except I got a pretty busy day on Wednesday anyhow. But somebody needs to go down there and do two things. One, folks here in the legislature, don't even think about passing this bill because it's garbage. Two, take a look at, go into the statutes and take a look at, where is it here? At 2 GCA 7102. This is the one that says if the Youth Congress passes it, you got to introduce it. It's just wrong. That needs to be repealed, and you ought to think very seriously about junking the whole concept of a Youth Congress, because it does nobody any good. The potential for mischief is great. If you want proof, take a look at what I just read here, 264. All right.
Or read Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, good example. See, so that's the end of silly legislation that I have to talk about today. So let's head for Churchill Downs, and we'll come back to the OPA, Gura versus Michael San Nicolas.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Here we are, Louisville, Kentucky at Churchill Downs. It's the home stretch for Tall Tales. 6 furlongs, and I'll be crossing the finish line. Next item on the card, the OPA, Benjamin Cruz, BJ Cruz versus 2 mares. This is a story that ran in the Daily News. Audit to shed more light on solid waste host funds. OPA wrapping up audit on villages receiving solid waste money. I've talked about this before. It's an interesting subject. The OPA is wrapping up its audit report on spending by the Chalan-Pago Ordot and Inalahan, which receive money each year from the Guam solid waste customers as the host villages of the closed Ordot dump and the new Lajun landfill, respectively. The Public Utilities Commission requested an audit in May of 2020 after the village mayors asked the PUC to increase their annual host premium payments from $150,000 to $175,000. According to the PUC, an audit is necessary to ensure the money already received by the villages was spent according to the law. PUC Chief Administrative Law Judge Fred Harecki in May 2020 reported that some of the spending by villages doesn't appear to be for projects as defined by the law which authorized the payments. Spending documents compiled by the PUC show the villages spent the money for a wide range of village activities, including holiday events and sports leagues. So here's what happened. When we finally got the Ordot dump closed and built the landfill down in Luzon, the statutory mechanism said we're going to give $150,000 a year to Inarajan because they got stuck with the Luzon landfill. And we're going to give $150,000 a year to Ordot Chalan-Pago because they got stuck with the Ordot dump all that time. So this money will come out of fees charged by the Solid Waste Authority, and the commissioners in the villages are to spend that money to benefit all of the people in the village. Those are the rules, paraphrasing. Spending documents compiled by the PUC show the villages spent the money for a wide range of village activities, including holiday events and sports leagues. Inalahan, during the term of former Mayor Doris Lujan, also spent its money on staff bonuses, prizes for village decorating contests, and cash gifts to some residents, according to spending documents compiled by the PUC. For example, Inalahan in December 2015 gave $100 Christmas bonus gifts to 22 elderly village residents, documents state. Lujan died in September of 2021, so she's out of it. So here's what's going on. This money is given to people for raises, gifts, et cetera, et cetera. Now, why would a responsible public official do that? The answer is so that people will really like them. Oh, yeah, Doris Lujan was really a good mayor. She gave us all Christmas presents when she was the mayor. I really liked her. So in order to, gain the adulation of the folks, you give away public money. This was the spirit of Governor Lilian Guerrero when she decided she would provide a $10,000 payment to the next of kin of everyone who died from COVID. That's what she said. And then she explained it to us by saying, it's the least I can do. I want people to feel good about me, so it's the least I can do. I'll give them $10,000 worth of public money, and then they'll say, oh, when Tunsus Macaca died, the governor gave us 10. He's a good governor. That's the emotion that governs these things. So it's a really good thing we have a Public Utilities Commission, and they're on the lookout for this kind of stuff. Harecki stated the way the money has been spent gives village mayors and planning councils sole discretion as to who benefits from it. Public Auditor BJ has said his office won't comment on the audit until it's publicly released. Chalampago Otdat Mayor Jesse Gogui said he received a draft report from the OPA and he can't comment either. Chalampago Otdat saved most of its host premium money, about 84%, according to the PUC, and has allocated it toward construction of a new mayor's office and new multi-purpose center. Well, that sounds right. Gogui has said the village expects to use about $140,000 per year in future host premiums to pay off a $2.66 million Department of Agriculture loan to build the multi-purpose center. It sounds exactly like what it's for. The host community payments, which are funded by fees paid by solid waste customers, started in 2013, and each village had received a total of $1.2 million by 2020. The 2010 law that authorized the payments states the municipal planning councils for the two villages shall determine the project to be funded. Chalampago Otdat receives money because of the impact of the now closed Otdat dump. And let's see. Commercial solid waste customers pay $3.57 per ton in premiums to benefit the two villages. So $3.57 goes to what amounts to a slush fund for one of the mayors. May she rest in peace. Well, that's the end of it for today. So it's time for me to say, let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Finding ways to freeze the fuel hike. I'm Richard Jordan, Fox News. The White House wants to hit the brakes on rising gas prices, now hovering near $5 a gallon.
The Biden administration is considering a plan that might ease your pain at the pump. Plan is to place a temporary pause on the nation's gas tax. Currently, gas prices are near record highs. This weekend, the national average for a gallon of fuel is $4.98, just 3 cents lower than the record $5.01 from last week.
Fox's Jackie Ibanez. The price of everyday goods and services is also skyrocketing. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen.
I don't see a drop-off in consumer spending is a likely cause of a recession in the months ahead.
Secretary Yellen on ABC's This Week. The House committee investigating the Capitol riots says a subpoena for former Vice President Mike Pence is a possibility. Public hearings continue this week.
Tuesday, a look at pressure Trump allies applied to state legislatures to send alternate slates of electors to Washington. Trump confidant John Eastman engineered a scheme which hinged on Vice President Pence rejecting slates of electoral ballots as he presided over certification of the Electoral College on January 6th. But Pence's counsel testified that Eastman apparently wanted two sets of rules. Ludig warned that an effort by Pence to tilt the scale toward Mr. Trump would plunge the country into what he termed a revolution.
Fox's Chad Pergram on Capitol Hill. A 15-year-old was shot and killed in a popular Washington, D.C. neighborhood. Police say multiple people were shot during a music festival, including a police officer.
The police officer is recovering from an area hospital. Two of the victims are also recovering at an area hospital.
Police are considering taking legal action against the event organizers. America's listening to Fox News.